welcome to another episode of SJU. This Tuesday, we're very excited about it. As usual, I've got my lovely panel here. We've got you with Joe Starr. We've got you with Spencer Gilbert. We brought you with Dan Merle. I am a Danielle Radford. It is nice to see all of you. We've got some great stories today. We're going to talk a little bit about the Game of Thrones finale. Not too much, don't worry. I know you're probably all steeped in Game of Thrones right now, but we're going to touch on it a little bit because we haven't gotten a chance to yet. We're going to use that and also talk a little bit about finales in general and what we all kind of think about them, which I think will be a really fun segment. We're also going to talk about, there's a new Toy Story 4 trailer. We've got that new Once Upon a Time in Hollywood trailer. Tons of fun things to get into.
There's a new Downton Abbey trailer.
There is a new Downton Abbey trailer.
Guess who's coming to dinner?
The King and Queen.
I love how they kept saying, it's 1927, we've got to get modern. Edge of our seats, fellas. Edge of our seats. Did you see her new hair?
Carson's coming back.
I know. We're the biggest Abby heads you'll ever meet, so...
Upstairs, downstairs.
Does it matter anymore?
No, it doesn't matter.
1927? 29? I don't know. He said it at the beginning of the trailer.
We're all upsy downs
As you
now.
do. You walk out of a car and you say what year it is.
I do it every time. I did it when I left my Uber today.
I guess
2019.
Yeah. On Twitter, people are like, it's 2019, people, and we're still pretending Chef Boyardee is okay.
See, he was the original that guy.
He's canceled.
Cancel Chef Boyardee.
Cancel culture has come for your favorite SpaghettiOs. Speaking of things that are over, boom, boom, boom. We just did the Game of Thrones finale. I'm sure you've all seen it, but if you have not, we do want to go ahead and say we're going to spoiler the crap out of it right now. So I'll do the armsies, and then I will unarms when we are done talking spoilers. And maybe make that noise that you won't hear because you will have it muted. So the finale of the show aired on Sunday. It was watched by 19.3 million people on Sunday per the data that HBO released. It is a record for the network. And again, we did the spoilers. So just some initial kind of reactions about the Game of Thrones finale, especially Dan and Joe. We haven't really got to hear yours.
From us.
Yeah, you heard plenty, but I would like to get your impressions.
I was fine with it. It's the same thing that's been really for me all season. Some parts of it worked really, really well for me, and I thought were great. But ultimately, it's sort of like when somebody's telling you a story, but you have to go somewhere, and so like they're telling you a story, and then they get to the end, and like they have to catch a train or something. Like anyway, long story short, she came to the house, and then we went out to dinner.
Too long didn't read.
And you're like, oh, okay.
They yada yada yada.
Exactly. They kind of yada in Game of Thrones a little bit. Like they were telling me a great story, and it felt like they got to the end. They're like, anyway, long story short, Bran was the king, and Jon had to go north, and Sansa was the queen of the north.
Anyway, great to see you.
Good to see you.
We gotta go.
Are you still cool to pick me up from the airport?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I was perfectly happy. I know that some people don't like the brand thing. Some people don't like this or that and the other. I was generally happy with where the show went. It was, as with many of the seasons, not every episode, because people forget that not everyone. A lot of people loved the first two episodes, and then things got a little squiffy for a lot of people. So I don't think it was a dumpster fire. It didn't retroactively cancel my love for the show. I don't think that David Benioff and D.B. Weiss should be banned from working in show business forever.
Should they burn in hell, Dan?
I don't think they should burn in hell.
Well, Twitter does not agree.
I certainly would have loved a more perhaps thoughtful. I think in retrospect they chose not to perhaps take as long to tell the story as they should have or could have. But yeah, I mean, it sucks in that it was, like I said, it was an A+ show with like a B- ending, which is for me, which is not great because it would have been great to have an A+ ending, but you get what you get. So I'm okay with it. Would have loved for certain elements to have been done better, but that's life. That's how it goes. It's a bit of a disappointment, but also I'm generally okay with what happened.
Yeah, man. Speaking of sucking it up, I don't know why I did that transition, Joe. What were your thoughts?
I think when I first heard that they were going to do so few episodes for the last season, it was paired with like this hype that it was like, don't worry, they're all the length of a feature. And I was like, okay. And then when I was like, wait a minute, these are very short features. Oh no.
Yeah, and then they're counting that after the episode.
Yeah.
In the runtime.
Yeah. I'm there too. I liked a lot of I really liked Arya Stark's arc quite a bit. I think I might be one of the only people that was like, why isn't she murdering? Where I was like, I kind of like that her arc was realizing that was kind of wrecking her life and that maybe she needed a change. I don't like that she got there by the Hound going, hey, maybe don't kill. And she goes,
You're
okay.
right.
That's where you needed an episode of them on the road to King's Landing and having
Yeah.
a nice talk
Yeah.
about revenge and what
Or-
it could do. Yes, that
or
was what
more
it-
room to
yes.
breathe in that battle where, like, hell keeps hitting her as she's trying to get to Cersei and actively makes the choice to try to save that mom and daughter instead of...
Before, not after.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was very trunicated. I don't know. I don't think there's a lot of truth to this. Oh, well, they got Star Wars, so they bailed. Because it's like, this stuff's... They didn't start working on this show, this season, a year ago. You know, this...
I love the narrative that people like. That, like one person says it on Reddit, and then it becomes because like I saw that like once, and the next day it was everywhere. Like one comment on Reddit was just like, "I can't believe they got Star Wars," and then they just blew off this show to go work on Star Wars. And then
that's
the
not
next
how
day it was
timetables
10,000
work.
people going like, "Yeah, I can't believe they got Star Wars and blew the show off to go work on Star Wars." Like, whoa, hang on,
Yeah.
wait,
But I am-
you don't know that.
But hang on, wait. You don't get Star Wars without preparing to pitch something
Sure, but how
and
long have
putting
they been
together
working?
an
I think,
outline.
but if you
and
look at the
presenting.
timeline, I'm pretty sure that they were working on this before they got Star Wars.
Season 8?
Yes.
I don't know.
Plus-
Who's to say?
Plus, who's to say?
Reddit.
You weren't in the room. You weren't in the room with them, like kicking their feet up, going like, screw this. We got to
Well,
work on
I
it." So
am-
that's a total
you can
supposition
confidently
that's now
say-
taken as fact.
You can confidently say, though, that as the show went on, they were granted more opportunities to do other things, and they took them in the sense that they got Confederate, like, pretty far down the road before the
that was
people...
like 4 years ago, wasn't it?
At internet time, man, that was like a year ago. That was like
Oh,
one, maybe
good Lord.
2 years ago. Yeah, that was...
I was
So, like, yeah, maybe their attention wandered, and it's obviously an all-consuming, very difficult thing to make. And okay, you can't put a date on when they were working on Star Wars versus
No.
when they were working on Game of Thrones, but I think you can safely say that they, like I said, had other opportunities that they at least pursued while they were working on Game of Thrones.
The thing that I am curious, I'd love to. There are always going to be weird meetings and decisions that you're never going to know about. But like 19.3 million, that's a record for the network. Like the decision making to go, we have what is currently probably the biggest, most beloved show in television history. Let's lop it off at the ankles and do a trunicated final
Do you
season.
mean truncated?
Truncated.
Okay,
Thank you. Sorry.
thank you.
Well, it's
Truncated.
trunicated now. Change your dictionary.
Like that decision to me is like what goes into that. Like you could do 2 more seasons of this sucker, and like people would probably still be along for the ride.
Here's what I'll say, and I'm not defending the pace. There were definitely pacing issues. There were definitely rushed story points. I did like a lot of what this last season did. There's some other things that I agree. You should have, or could have taken 2 or 3 episodes to do. But here's what I will say about the ending and the whatever. In their defense, they started making the show in 2010, which means they were probably pitching the show in 2009. These 2 guys never signed up to write the ending to A Song of Ice and Fire. They never signed up to write from scratch, essentially, the ending to this show. I went back and looked at when this was announced, and every news story that talked about it was talking about it's an adaptation of George R.R. Martin's ongoing series of books. Each season will be an adaptation of one of the books, and by the time you get to the last seasons, he will have the fifth. They never signed
Yeah,
on
that's
to
fair.
write the ending of this story. They had an author who wrote a bunch of books and then stopped writing them, and they kicked the can down the road as far as they could on this thing. They went like 2 seasons past when he wrote. That's 2 years past the last book. There was ample time and opportunity for George R.R. Martin to have finished this book, and they don't have to try to formulate their own version of this ending. Like, I'm not saying that they executed perfectly. They did not. But part of me, too, like everyone who's ready to throw them out of the window and talk about how genius George R.R. Martin is, like, first of all, they adapted a lot of those earlier books into, I think, a better version in the show, a more streamlined version, better storytelling in a lot of places in the books did. And secondly, he bears some of the blame for the fact that Benioff and Weiss struggled with this ending because they never signed up to write the ending to Game of Thrones. I think that there was an implicit understanding that they would have a decade. He would have a decade. I've never written a book in my life. I'm pretty sure in 9 years that I could sit down and write a book. Not a good book, but a book. If you gave me 9 years, having never written a book in my entire life, I think that I could crack it in 9 years. I'm not saying that it would have been a great book, but I think I could produce one. And I'm just saying, I'm not going to lay this entirely at their feet because I don't think it was the job they signed up for.
Well, and he doesn't blame them either, because he did have an interview that he did where he spoke with, or he talks about in Vanity Fair, where he thanks all of them for their work, says without them this wouldn't have happened with HBO. If it wasn't HBO, the series probably doesn't get made. He does talk about the books. He says that he knows Winds of Winter is very late. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah.
We knew that. It's like when you turn in your homework.
6 years late.
I know it's very late, but it's going to be really good. And he said he's going to finish it. Then he's going to do Dream of Spring. He says, how will it all end? I hear people asking, is it going to be the same as the show? And his answer, which I loved, well, yes. And no. And yes. And no. And yes. And no. And yes.
Is this a Kevin Feige musical song? And yes, and no, and yes, and yes, and no.
So, he mentions that it's going to be about 3,000 3,000 pages total of the manuscript, and he is going to be finishing the books, so we will get a chance to see how he would or would not have done it. They probably wish they would have had that too. I know that they had many meetings and conversations.
How in his head does Martin get now? How even more in his head does he get now?
Oh my God.
Because
Right, 'cause
not
now-
only now there's so much expectation, but now also there is a version of his story that he also, you can say all you want, oh, I'm just going to let it be its own thing, but it's in your head, man. Like every up and every down that they made, like that's going to play through your head creatively. Like that's a nightmare.
How many times has that outline changed?
Yeah.
Every time something that he
Yeah.
told them was a plot point that maybe didn't get to where he would have wanted it
I'd
to
be
be.
sweating through my Polish fishing hats, man.
And for everyone praising George R. R. Martin and his amazing storytelling, did you read a different last two books than I read? I mean, it was the opposite of what was going on. If the last season of Game of Thrones was rushed, particularly A Dance of Dragons was like, wait. Why are you telling me?
It wasn't rushed. He just decided to just kind of hit pause on the main characters and kind of
just kind of wandering
Who are these
around
people?
for a while.
Why are we on this boat? What's happening?
Who's John Connington?
He stopped making choices.
Too many Johns. Well, that's his writing style. He describes it as gardening, where he just like kind of plants seeds of characters and tends to them and sees where they go. And like now it's this bramble bush, and I don't think he has an outline anymore. I think he really, which is dangerous. Yeah, he's got a bramble, and he just like starts from a POV chapter and is like, well, let's see where this goes. And so that'll take another 20 years.
And hopefully there won't be a petition when the 2 ones come out. Like, obviously there was a petition that came out for this. That seems to be the new jam, where if you don't like something, you get to go on change.org as though it is the law and ask people to change it. So my question about this, how much of this is a real reaction? How much of it is just that it's a slow news cycle? People are looking for something to cover, and then that becomes the snake eating its own tail because now more people are hearing about it and everyone's talking about
None
it.
of it's news because no one, until somebody actually acts on a fan petition.
Can't wait.
Can't wait.
Kind of happened with Sonic.
Sonic? Ooh, I guess, Sonic would be the first one. So, I think that they'll reshoot the last season of Game of Thrones. I think they're going to run it back.
Sonic rules.
Re-sign the
Resign the
contract.
cast and crew, bring them all back to Spain or Gibraltar or wherever they shoot. And,
Jakarta, they're going to love this.
And it'll be like was it Twitch Plays Pokemon? Like, the fans write Game of Thrones. Everyone gets a line of dialogue.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Perfect. Mwah. And so, I guess, what do we think that we can learn or take from these things?
Sorry, I was just thinking in my head the rewriting of the finale. It's like interior King's Landing. Arya wanders around shell-shocked. Enter Sirio Farrell. Not today. I've been in the dungeons for the last 9 years.
Bran wargs into Serial Pharrell.
Yes, exactly. Who mounts a
The Night King.
a reincarnated Rhaegal, and next to the Night King, who is now on a non-frozen Viserion.
But wait, you have my axe, says Ned Stark, reanimated as a centaur, because I feel like this needs more centaurs. I've always been a fan of centaurs.
From the shadows, Lady Stoneheart walks out.
Yeah.
It's just, I can imagine behind her is, have you met Griff, she says?
He's kind of young.
Oh, boy.
No,
I would love to read what that fan version would
it feels like, you ever play that game at camp where you're trying to write a story in a circle and everyone gets one sentence?
I mean, it's still
By
be
game at
entertaining.
camp, do you mean highly entertaining improv game that I learned at UCB, spending my hard-earned money for my improv comedy education?
Oh, I learned
choice.
it. I learned it in Indiana in fourth grade.
Life doesn't have new choice. Too bad.
The first time I saw
it
a story
doesn't.
about that fan petition was literally, it was just like 5,000 people have signed a fan petition. And then because the movie news machine needs constant fuel, it got covered on every blog and Twitter account and whatever, and soon it was over 1 million people.
1 million's a lot of people. Like,
Yeah,
as
but-
far as these things go, I don't think Remake The Last Jedi hit 1 million, or did it? Rank, we get updated Remake The Last Jedi numbers.
Yeah, what was the final number in Remake The Last Jedi?
Also, has a,
Change.org
has a
petition.
trailer dropped for that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I think a lot of people were just like jumping on the bandwagon. They were just like, yeah!
Yeah.
I like that the internet was a more innocent place when Game of Thrones started, where it used to just be fun to film someone's reaction to an episode of Game of Thrones, and then we'd all go, "Oh, that was fun." But now the reaction has become reality, whereas you would have just filmed someone going, D&D can burn in hell! Like, now everyone's just actually like, they can! Oh, how they should burn! Yeah.
Well, Twitter is all comedy writers now, right? That's something we've talked about. Everyone on Twitter is a comedy writer, and so everyone's trying to get their takes in. And some of them they do by being very, out there and taking it to the extreme. And then some of them are subtle. I haven't
look.
seen those, but I believe they exist.
The weird thing about this, though, is that, like, this was a fast and hard U-turn
Yeah.
for this show. And I think that, look, nothing deserves this kind of treatment, but it's just a really bad sign that something could go from so beloved to so not hated, because this is, let's say 10% of the people 10% of the people who watched the finale signed a petition to remake it, which is really bad.
You know what? One problem that I really think it had was because the season ends, and on one hand, you can be like, what? You think the show that's all about good people having horrible things happen to them and nothing working out the way it's supposed to be, like that's what it did and you're surprised? I think the challenge there is when we started to lean full into Night King and we all have to get together, we went from what the premise of Game of Thrones was to just full on Dungeons and Dragons, where there's an evil and we all have to get together to fight it, and then we had to do a very sudden hard right turn whiplash back into, okay, now let's get back to the moral gray that is Game of Thrones, and that was a hard adjustment to make.
Yeah, it's a weird combination of factors. People that don't like the storytelling, that's fine. I had issues with the storytelling. Then there's people who brought all of it goes back to the George R. R. Martin problem. Like, I saw a lot of people that were just like, after the finale, just like things that were wasted about Game of Thrones, and they're like, the Voluncar prophecy, and like, blah, blah, blah. It's like, that was never even a part of the
really
show.
mentioned
Like,
the
you're
word
bringing
Voluncar.
that from the books, and the show not, like that, so there's that crowd that's like, they're worried that this is going to be the end of A Song of Ice and Fire, and that the show didn't acknowledge this, and so now what? And there's some people that I thought were just being sort of willfully ignorant. Like, I saw so many people that were just like, oh, so John goes to the Night's Watch. Why is there even a Night's Watch? That doesn't even make sense. And it's like, they literally explain that in the episode. They say that the reason that there's still a Night's Watch is because they decided that there had to be a place to send bastards and broken things. Like, you may not like that explanation, but like to like ignore the show telling you something to then bring that up as a problem with the show. Like, so I think there were people that had just made up their mind. Blanket problem.
That
they
might be
didn't like
the
it.
reason they said, but like, what's the day-to-day of the Night's Watch? There's no the forces of death and the wildlings you're on good terms with. So you're just
It's like Westeros jail. It's exile.
Yeah.
It's exile.
Making soup.
essentially.
making soup.
Yeah.
Cuddling up in pelts.
cuddling on pelts.
That's
There are always
Being
going to be
cold.
little things to squelch, like that whole area, the gift area is. It's all a mix of wildlings and northern men. Like that's going to be like just a hotbed of just like they're like cops. They're like wall cops, which I would love to watch.
Paul Blart Wall
Paul
Cop.
Blart Wall Cop. I would watch that show. I'm not saying you have to be happy with it, but I'm saying like there was an explanation given, but a lot of people just pretended like that wasn't given to find. And that's the weird thing, and it's the extreme thing that you talk about too. It's like you can have problems with the show, that's fine, but to go to the extreme of just to lose perspective on the fact that you may not have liked this ending, but there were years of this show before it, and to just throw all of that out the window. It's not like, because like sometimes a movie I'll be like, oh, I didn't like that movie because it didn't stick. The ending wasn't right. Like, that's an investment of 2 hours. Whereas I think that you can give a little more credit to a TV show like The Simpsons. I don't hate The Simpsons now because the last 15 years weren't great. It's just, I acknowledge that the first 10 years were great, and the last 15 years have been kind of average. I think that people need to find some people need to find a little perspective on the show. It's like, yes, the ending, there was definitely some things that were lacking, but let's not throw out everything that came before it, because there was some amazing stuff there.
I don't think The Simpsons is a fair comparison because The Simpsons is
Eternal.
No, it did have 10 great years, and it could be an old man taking a bath for the next 25, and we would always have those 10 years, and it would be great. Game of Thrones was a serialized story that was heading somewhere. This was essentially a novel or a series of novels or a movie that was heading towards a destination. So I think that as opposed to a sitcom where like you're just tuning in for a half an hour to spend time with characters you like, this was... It's in the title. It was a Game of Thrones, and so I think that the ending of that like probably stings a little more, like with The Sopranos or other shows, or Lost and things like that, where the show is like, we're gonna tell you like here's how it all goes down, and then it retroactively makes the journey not worth it. Not for me, but I can see where they're coming from.
I guess it's like, for me, it's like Battlestar Galactica, which was a show that we got to the end of it, and you're like, oh, she's just not going to explain Starbuck at all. And just like, whatever. I don't think Game of Thrones necessarily did that, but that doesn't mean that I can't go back and enjoy the parts of Battlestar Galactica that I liked. I just think you have to be able to weigh good and bad and like and dislike and put it in perspective, because otherwise everyone's just extremists and you can only react to the 2 inches in front of your face. It's like you gotta, and if you look at Game of Thrones and decide that this ruined the whole thing for you, that's fine, but like, is that a decision you're ready to make 10 minutes after the show ends?
Well,
yes.
That's the challenge of the immediacy of Twitter too, where like it's fresh, man. And sorry, I'm about to sneeze as that was awesome.
Bless you. That's
You
fresh.
chose towards Spencer.
Thank you.
Sorry, no, I tried to go
Even
all
with
the
fair
way
warning.
around. I tried to go all the way around. I apologize. I didn't want to.
That's your leaning arm.
Yeah, I didn't want to go to camera because I'm a professional, and you got to take hits in this business, Spencer. Thank you for taking that hit.
Spray.
Like there's because I've even seen people who like on Sunday were like, yes, they deserve to die, and I hope they burn in hell. And then, the next day they're like, oh, I've been thinking about the show a little bit, and then have their more reasoned response. So it's like, the immediacy is that difference between, I've been shot, to, I got shot, and got some help from a doctor, and they patched me up.
Well, and it's also, again, we've talked about how this is one of the last of these big, or we think that this might be one of the last of these big shows. We're all watching it at once. We're all tweeting it at once. So a lot of people thought about other times, because obviously Twitter is all very new. Other big shows, we mentioned some of them. There were some disappointments. Apparently, and I don't watch a lot of Big Bang Theory. I'm not going to crap on it because I'm not going to yuck anyone's yum. It's not the show for me. But apparently that finale was really good. Did anyone get a chance to see that at this table? That's going to be a no.
Never watched
Yeah.
The Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
I've seen
It's basically
on
our...
cable, like I've seen it before, but
I
could
It's
not
our,
tell you
it's
which
our writer's room, but with
one's
math.
which.
Yeah, I
know
just
they
don't.
say Bazinga.
I just don't appreciate a show that just caters towards nerddom and fandom that much. I just.
It hit a little too close to home with how accurately it depicted nerds.
Yeah.
So it's
It hurts and we're insulted.
comedy is truth and The Big Bang is truth.
Someone called it nerd face once. It was hilarious. And so there was also the finale to Breaking Bad, which people
Yeah.
think is a great one. Do you have any finales that really stuck with you and that you really loved?
I thought Parks and Rec did a really good job. that one was more about tone and feeling than it was about stories. Because with the jump forward, sure, we're like a little ridiculous, where it's like, now we're in the White House, now this. But I think that show was less about arc and more about how it made you feel and how you felt about those people. And I think the finale knew what it needed to accomplish, knew what it needed to do. And so I thought that one landed so solidly in terms of just giving all those characters a really lovely send-off.
The Office had one perfect series finale, which was the episode Goodbye, Michael.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they kept going for a few more years. But I will say, for all of the issues I think the last few seasons had, I thought that the series finale for The Office was able to service all of the characters in a pretty genuine way. I love that it just ended with Kelly and Ryan being terrible people. No redemption for them whatsoever. They're both just awful, because they both were throughout the series of the show. They were both really not good people. I like it really stayed true to the core of those characters. So it was the second best series finale for The Office after the episode that was not the series finale for The Office.
Yeah, and the UK series finale, which I guess is the Christmas
amazing.
special.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So good.
Perfect.
Untouchable. But they have the
Finch.
Yeah, it's helped that they only have to do 2 years in a special in the UK for TV. But that
As
is the
opposed to
natural end
forever,
of the
yeah.
story, is like Jim and Pam, or Tim and Pam.
Yeah.
Tim and Dawn.
Tim and Dawn,
Tim and
yeah,
Dawn.
they get together, and that's
We will
how-
respect Don at this table.
the story has been told and the show's over. Another HBO show that ended with a shortened season this year was Veep. Shortened because Julia Louis-Dreyfus battling cancer. What's your excuse, Benny Offenweiss? That was a fantastic finale, and again, these horrible people that you have laughed at this whole time really got what you deserved. It was the good version of the Seinfeld finale,
Yeah.
where it's like, oh, when you think about it, these people really effed over everybody else, and this is what really should happen to them, but it still managed to be funny and entertaining.
Well, you're I think the big Seinfeld fan at the table. I don't know about you two. I just know that it's in Spencer's blood.
It came on at the same time as Martin.
Oh,
Understood.
There's a Simpson Seinfeld 7 and 7:30 block for me, so that was.
Do you
one
like
and
that
two.
finale?
No.
Okay.
No.
the
I mean,
thesis behind it is
Yes.
good, but they turned it into that's the people forget in a vacuum maybe, but Seinfeld, the finale was it was like Game of Thrones. This Game of Thrones on steroids as far as cultural event,
Yeah.
at least in white suburbia. It's true.
On the same time as Martin, though.
But
They lived in the same New York as the Friends did.
Yes, exactly. Those work in the same New York as Friends. But preceding Seinfeld was an hour-long clip show, wrapping
Yeah.
up the series,
Yeah.
and then the finale comes on, and the finale is basically a clip show. I like the thesis behind the Seinfeld finale, but it's just it's another clip show. If you're watching it real time, so it's the idea behind it was good, but I did not like the execution.
Yeah, I just did this. Something else, I watched How I Met Your Mother because, again, at one period, I was with an ex, and there were some shows that we could watch together, and that was on the list of those shows. And so I watched it. I watched the season finale, or series finale. That was another one where, even though it wasn't a clip show, it felt like a clip show because they did those weird flash forwards, and we spent so much time learning about how did he meet this woman, and then immediately they kill her off. And then immediately it goes back to this old premise. A finale that I thought worked really well was Angel. I thought that finale was perfect. It felt like the characters, that was the way that they should have gone out. It felt really satisfying. So what do you think it makes a good series finale? What are you looking for?
I think, and I'll use How I Met Your Mother to sort of describe it. I think the series finale really needs to keep encapsulating the spirit of the show and what the show is and the premise of the show. And the finale of How I Met Your Mother failed in that manner because it cheated the premise. We've spent years on the premise of How I Met Your Mother, and
Literally
then
the title.
and
Literally
then
the title of the
in
show.
the finale, and I think maybe a few episodes before that, when they started to actually introduce the mother, they just started to go. They just put it on triple fast forward. To just cover a bunch of ground, and then sort of cheated, and then say, oh, but Robin's actually technically your mom because she's always been around, and blah blah blah, and just really kind of cheated itself. So I think that finale failed the premise and the spirit of the show. A show like Dexter where I feel like the point was, when is Dexter going to get caught? And as much as we might like that character,
I love that beard.
oh God, the beard.
Oh, beautiful.
Like, I feel like the point was like the Schadenfreude of watching Dexter was going to be, we love these characters, but we know that consequences are coming. That was, to me at least, that was supposed to be the point and the premise of the show, and then the finale did not deliver on its own premise because they did a Deus Machina storm, and then he ends up being a lumberjack. The whole show was consequences. Nope, now he's a lumberjack, eat some pancakes.
Yeah.
I think there's two ways to do a finale. One is the one that like services the history of the show. Star Trek: The Next Generation did that very well, where it was an original story, but it took you back to the beginning and allowed you to play off of the character, where the characters have grown over the last 7 years, but then also left them the path forward, mostly because they had to go film a movie right afterwards. But that was one that just sort of was looking at the past of the show and resolving the thesis of it in a really good way. And then, like with what Breaking Bad did, and this is why it's so hard, I think, now, especially now, is it's how do you give people what they want in a surprising way?
Yes.
Because Breaking Bad, I think, gave everybody what they wanted, but in a way that they didn't expect. Which sounds easy, but I think is actually incredibly hard, because
Sure.
if you just give everybody what they want, they're like, oh, well, I knew that was going to happen. Boo. And then if you don't give them what they want, they're like, that didn't, what? No, boo. And
Well, it's like Lost.
Yeah, it's like Lost was trying to do a weird thing, and they painted themselves into a corner
Yeah.
3 seasons
Yeah.
before the
That
finale.
wasn't what anyone wanted.
That's the problem with building a show as you go. As you get to the, it's like putting together a puzzle, but you don't know what the picture is, and you're putting together 2 different puzzles, and you get to the end, you're like, oh shit, these pieces don't fit. Forget those pieces.
Why is
and
there a
we're
castle
gonna
in my
jam
ocean?
These pieces
Yeah.
in there. Yeah, I don't hate the Lost finale as much as some people do, but
Well, you had to choose. Are you going to answer the mysteries, or are you going to stick with the thematic
Right.
thing you've been setting up? So, to me, just as important as what's in the finale is when the finale comes.
Yeah.
It's so much. The finales I like are the ones that came at the right time, when they didn't have story left to tell in a drama, or when like the dynamics and the characters were getting stale in a comedy. It's like, that's fine. Just do an episode that's like true to the spirit of the show at that point, and you're out. But you know, with Game of Thrones, when it comes too fast, I think Dexter came too late. But I think you can look at all these finales that people had a strong reaction to and say, well, that came way too late in the series. We were all out of gas by then, or that came way too early and it was like weird and trunicated.
Yeah, very, very trunicated. I'm going to keep adding syllables to it.
Please do.
Well, I think a good one that like hit that nail in terms of like it's going out exactly where it's supposed to go out, and also stayed true to like what it's supposed to be. Didn't paint itself in any corners. Was Avatar: The Last Airbender. Did a really good, because pretty much every episode of that show was like, here's really cool action, but then also balanced with like really cool character stuff. They told the exact story they needed to tell. They didn't push because the show was really popular. They didn't add like 4 more books or seasons or anything. They just said, nope. Let's keep to what we were supposed to do. And then by the time you get to that finale, you don't have to like try to pull any tricks or like Lost or How I Met Your Mother did. You're just able to keep doing what you've always done. Like, here's really cool action, and then here's your really nice character beats. They just kept getting to do the show they always did, just at the point that it needed to end, and that's why I think that show felt so satisfying from beginning to end.
All right. Well, thank you all for, and I'll do this now because we're officially not going to talk about Game of Thrones anymore. I wasn't
Or
sure.
the ending to a million other shows.
Yeah.
See, look at me, looking out for y'all. Once again, we are Fandom Entertainment, and that is pretty darn cool. You can like, subscribe, and hit that bell.
Ding a ding.
Hey,
He doesn't have it.
Ryan!
There you go.
thank you.
He just started punching his Coke Zero.
It's not ringing.
It's not ringing. If you hit the bell, you'll get notifications when we put up new content. We have so much great stuff on fandom.com right now. We've got how the Game of Thrones prequel season can expand on what George R.R. Martin has told us about the Age of Heroes. That is an article by Donna Dickens. We've also got Power Levels, which we're very excited about.
Yeah.
That is going to be on Screen Junkies. which dragon is the most powerful dragon? We used actual legitimate math by very smart people, and they helped us figure that out.
I got to a point where I can only hear about this episode or that show and think about that scene from Starsky and Hutch where Will Smith makes Will Ferrell makes Owen Wilson and Ben Stiller I guess have sex with each other, and he just goes, 2 dragons. That's what I want to see. 2 dragons. Look up Will Smith. Don't look up Will Smith.
This is a weird sell.
Think about Men in Black. Will Ferrell, Starsky and Hutch remake. 2 dragons.
Okay.
That link,
And that's basically where Power Levels came from.
that link will not be in the description, but the links of everything else will be in the description. So go check those out. We're very excited about it. Next up, we have got some trailer roundups. First off, we've got the Toy Story 4 trailer. It is set to come out on June 21st. They just revealed a new trailer. What did y'all think about what we got to see? I feel like it just expanded on more stuff, and then there was Keanu Reeves, and yeah.
We're in a renaissance of surprise Keanu Reeves.
I know, it's the best.
Well, don't spoil where else he pops up, but just
Yeah.
watch a bunch of rom-com trailers, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe, he'll be in one of them.
Maybe you'll delightfully
Or just
find
for
him.
fun.
Yeah.
He's great. This looks really fun and well done. I don't know. For me, it's Toy Story movies, like the whole package, like the emotional impact it land, blah blah blah. Like the animation. Obviously, every Pixar movie looks more and more beautiful, and it's just as funny, at least in this trailer, as the other ones. But I'm a wait and see on this one because. It can be funny, but if it doesn't have the punch that the other ones have,
Yeah.
then
Yeah, it looks fun. It
looks
looks
fun.
cute, but it hasn't given me those Toy Story feels. It hadn't buzzed my Lightyear, you know. It's just like it looks like a fun kids movie, but I'm still. I hope it does. There's some funny stuff that I like to give them the full plush and
Yeah.
those characters I was a little sketchy about just from what we'd seen so far, and I like more from what we saw in this trailer.
And I like that it began with an existential question. I like that the trailer begins with the toy asking, "Why am I alive?"
Yeah, but don't ask questions you don't want the answers to.
don't get into the John Wick lore
Yeah.
of Toy Story.
Oh, we haven't talked about John Wick 3 yet, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in the room. So, yeah, that looked pretty cool. Hopefully, I think it's Pixar. I trust that it will be good. I'm going to try to go into it with no expectations because I think that's the best you can do, because if you start thinking about how much any of the other ones made you cry, then you suddenly, you have to go on a cry level. Can we do that for Power Levels? Just what movies make me cry the most?
The hardest?
Yeah.
There's got to be math.
It's
Yeah.
just Danielle. We bring the scientists in and they're just taking notes on Danielle.
Crying in this tube. I expect to feel the whole range of human emotion. So that's a pretty high bar, but every
high
Toy
bar.
Story movie has done that. So yeah,
You gotta think
paint
they
with
would-
all the colors of the wind, Toy Story, or you failed.
You got to think that it will, otherwise none of them needed to come back. They're all fairly rich folk. Like no one.
Yeah, but Disney could always be richer.
Fair.
What do we got? Toy Story? All right. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see.
They haven't failed us yet.
All right, and so next we've also got the Quentin Tarantino movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. We have that full trailer that has come out. Oh, Dan's making a face. Tell me about your face, Dan.
I can't wait.
Yeah?
I'm so excited for this movie. I really am. I want Quentin Tarantino's crazy, nuts, insane take on this whole thing. I love crazy Al Pacino.
Yes.
I love Leo. I mean, God, Leo. Just going nuts in this
Yeah.
movie. This insane, on a verge of a nervous breakdown, washed up, has to prove himself. I love everything about this movie, and I know this theory is probably flying around the internet already. Kurt Russell is most definitely playing Stuntman Mike from Death Proof in this movie. I think he's playing.
okay.
I think it's in the Tarantino verse.
Yeah.
I think he's played because Brad Pitt's a stuntman,
Yeah.
and I think that Kurt Russell's. I'm sure everyone else is. I just watched the trailer before he came on the air, so I'm sure everybody else is saying this too. But I think Kurt Russell's reprising his role as Stuntman Mike from.
He
Death Proof
did
in
look
this
just
movie.
like him.
Yeah.
He looked just like Stuntman Mike.
Yeah.
Maybe it's Stuntman Mike's stunt double.
Stuntman Mike.
Yeah.
Stuntman Mike.
I know he looks technically he would be younger in this movie or should be than but whatever. I don't know.
Yeah,
But I can't wait.
Look,
I
they
love-
shot
I-
this on actual film. I'm not expecting them to go back and do the de-aging process for
Yeah,
anyone.
yeah.
What did y'all think?
I mean, it looks great. I still don't really know what the movie's about because I got a lot of great moments and great looks out of it, but it reminds me a little bit of that Coen Brothers movie, Channing Tatum dancing.
Hail Caesar.
Hail Caesar,
yeah.
where the trailer was like, this looks like the most incredible send-up of like a certain era of Hollywood, and every star's in it, and oh man, and the I don't know what it's about, and the movie also ended up feeling the same way, where it's like this is kind of scattered, and I know it's Coen Brothers, and I'm just too dumb to appreciate it. But my worry is that this is just kind of Tarantino. You know, you can't see the gesture I'm making, but he's so
a wank-off gesture, I believe is what it's
yeah, I believe a wank, quick wank,
a dismissive wank
about just the things he loves
just
about
to
Hollywood.
truncate how you feel about this with the visual.
Yeah, and he's so up to his eyeballs in this lore and all this old Hollywood stuff that like I won't be able to relate to it just because I don't know what he's referencing, which is in turn referencing something else, and it's a circle of references all the way around that I'm not getting.
See, I think he's weaponized it. I think it used to be. I think his used to be a crutch for him, where like he leaned hard on these things.
Now the
that he
battle
loves.
station's fully armed and
Now I
operational.
think yes, like the last few films, like he's taken that stuff, but he's reinvented it and remixed it in such a way that like it's now his greatest weapon. And I hope that that's what this is.
This is the first time that I've gotten enough of a full picture of like what this is to get interested in it. It looks, beautifully shot. I was actually going to compare it to another Coen Brothers movie, but like a less about absurd dumb people burn after reading,
Okay.
where you take you hedge sort of these people with their own goals, trying to live their own lives, into a larger, like, weird problem. So instead of everyone at Hard Bodies falling into a weird CIA plot, you have this guy who's desperate to find, his former acting glory and his stuntman, like, sort of like, I guess, falling headlong into the Manson family.
Yeah, so what do we think about that and him using those elements? Because I'm like, it's real. It's a real thing that happened. It's part of history. I think if treated correctly, it can be fine. But I've seen a couple people do like,
Yes, but we don't know what the movie is,
Yeah.
and I think it is extremely likely that this movie ends with a Bruce Lee Charles Manson kung fu fight. Like,
Yeah.
It's.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, he
it's,
blew
this
up
could be
Hitler
an
in the movie theater.
I understand. Like, I want to see the movie first because
Yeah.
I think it's just as likely that it is like a crazy fictionalized like Charlie Manson.
Reimagining.
Bring me the head of Charlie Manson, Bruce Lee, Brad Pitt buddy cop movie. Then it is like, and if it's not, then I think we can make our judgments then. But I think there's so much that we don't know about what he's doing with this era that I'm not ready to make any judgment on that. Until I
and
see it.
apparently he's been telling people to keep it very secret. They've been trying to really keep it under wraps. I don't expect there's going to be a Thanos snap at the end, but apparently there's going to be something that we're not expecting.
All right. Cool.
Well, yeah, he's not someone who. Honestly, that's not even something I thought about when this movie was first announced and the premise of it was first announced. I went, I think me and a lot of people went, I don't know about Tarantino handling this thing in history, but it's like, he doesn't care about history, like, at all. To a point that it's not like, Braveheart is not historically accurate. Like, no, like, Tarantino's just like, I don't care. Like, I'm using this as a jumping off point, and we're gonna, murder Hitler with a flamethrower and a machine gun in a movie theater and end World War II.
I have a further theory that movie that you saw Leonardo DiCaprio in is the movie remake of what happened in Inglourious Basterds.
Yep. That's
And you're
exactly
just
what I was
further
thinking.
into this like world inside of a skewed alternate history world that he's making that was bigger than just the everyone smokes red apple cigarettes. It's like has an alternate history that he's made.
Do you think the briefcase gets opened and revealed in this one?
Maybe,
Is there
or we
something-
get the
Let's
origin.
say this stuff is better under the surface. We don't need it to be like Ready Player 2.
Nope, I need a Donnie Darko director's cut. Spoon feed me everything that's going on from Quentin Tarantino.
Yum, 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 yum,
give
yum, yum, yum.
give it to me.
Give me, I want it. All right, well, that was our show. Speaking of Braveheart, we do have the new Braveheart Honest trailer that is up on the Screen Junkies channel. We also have our Honest trailer commentaries where you can see us talking about, particularly me, how disgusting everyone was in that movie and just so covered in dirt. We've also got... I'm never letting it go.
Yeah, they weren't.
It's so gross. We've also, as I mentioned, we've got power levels so you can see about those fast dragons, especially if you're interested in things that you do use real world math, actual calculations. It isn't just us.
Dragons.
Again,
Funny clip.
Again, not in the description, but worth your time. We've got the Final Thrones final episode. We've also got charting. I got to chart with Dan this
Yeah, it was
week.
fun. We charted together.
Yeah, it was really fun, where we talked about some John Wick 3 and the Avengers and what was going on there. So go check out all of those fun things, and we will be back tomorrow.
Happy
Bye.
birthday, Mara.
Oh, happy birthday.
Birthday.